Hi guys! In today's video we're going to have a go at making a pink handbag cake. This one's based on a Ted Baker bag that I'd seen, but you can make whichever type of handbag you like with the same method. So I've got some pale pink pre-dyed icing, and I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter by adding a bit of white to it. Then I'm just going to take a handful of that pale pink that I've just mixed, and we're just going to add a little bit of Tylose powder to it. This just firms the fondant up a little bit. For our bag tags and handles and any little pieces, they're going to be a little bit firmer. So I've rolled out a thin piece which we're going to use for our tag. The first bit we're cutting out is in white, and I'm just using a round cutter just so that we get a curved edge on one side, and then using a ruler I'm going to cut down either side so we get a little strip like that. So it's only a slight curve at the end, and we don't need it quite as long as that, so we'll cut off one end. Then using our pale pink, I'm going to put my white onto the pale pink that we've got rolled out. I'm going to mark a little curved edge at the bottom. So I'm just putting a line with my knife where I'm going to bend the fondant, and then where that bend is going to be I'm going to cut out a little circle using a plunger cutter, and then I can fold that over. Now I've gone slightly off centre, so try and get your circle in the centre, and I'm just going to cut down either side, just leaving a couple of millimetres of pink either side of that white, and we'll trim that bottom bit. And we're going to run a stitching line down both sides. So this is just a stitching wheel tool that we've got, and then just using the pointy end of this tool I've drawn the bow in so it looks a little bit like a Ted Baker bag. So now I'm going to cut out a little square, and I'm going to cut around this square, just leaving like a little longer bit at the bottom, and this is going to go in the top of our little bag tag. I've actually just opened up that top end a little bit where I had originally folded it, so I can push this in, just press it down nice and tight around that. And I'm just going to give it a tiny bit of texture. So I've got a sand texture mat, so we're going to make a little bow now. So I'm just going to cut a small rectangle of my pale pink. That'll be the centre of the bow, and then we're going to cut almost a triangle but without the point at the very end. It's basically a piece that's fatter at one end, thinner at the other, and we want two the same. I've cut one a bit thicker than the other one, so let's cut another one the same. They're roughly similar. They're going to go either side of my little rectangle, and then we're going to do another two shapes that are similar but thinner and smaller for either side. So let's trim this down. So we're getting two little triangles, and they're going to slot in top and bottom like that. Do the same for the other side, and then you can stick those all together with a little bit of water. So we're going to paint this now in a bit of a rose gold. Now I've just mixed mine with vodka. You can use any clear alcohol or even lemon extract. You can mix it with water. It just sometimes can go a little bit clumpy when you mix it with water. And I'm just going to paint onto that white bit at the bottom of my tag, and then that top square bit as well. Now if it looks a bit patchy, let it dry and we can give it another coat. So I've got a 12-inch cake drum ready to put my cake on, and we've got some sheets of cake that we've baked, and what I want to do is just trim these down a little bit now. So I'm going to cut a strip, I'm going to stick it to the board with a bit of buttercream, then we're going to cover the top in a little bit of buttercream. I'm going to cut another strip. Now my next one's just going to be the same width as my first one, so I think this one was about 4 inches wide, and we're just going to pile it on top. We're going to go over again. We're going to keep layering them up now till we get the handbag to the height we want it to be. But each time I cut a strip now, I'm just going to cut it just a tiny bit narrower. So that one's just a little bit shorter or narrower than 4 inches. And can you see we're just building up, keeping going till you've got it the height you want. It's quite a tall, slim cake, this one, so you will have to be careful as it will want to sway backwards and forwards. So what I'm going to do is just to keep hold of it while I'm going to cover it, I'm going to push 2 plastic straws through just to hold it up, and we'll remove these later. I'm just smoothing off the sides just with a knife, so we're just trimming just a small amount so that it slopes gradually from the top, getting a little bit wider to the bottom. Try and keep it as smooth as you can. Do the same front and back, and then we're just going to take a little bit off either corner at the top so it slopes up towards the middle, and we're going to take a little bit more off here at this point, not too much. This will just start to shape your handbag a little bit more, so if you want it narrower at the top you can take a little bit more off than I have done. And then this bottom corner we're just going to trim as well so the bag gets slightly narrower at the bottom. Because it's quite a slim cake, we're just going to use a white chocolate ganache just because it'll be a little bit firmer than buttercream for me on this occasion. And we're going to completely cover all that side, and we're going to take it up and over the top, and then we'll cover the other side as well. And you'll probably find you need more than one coat. I'll put the white chocolate ganache recipe in the description box below the video for you as well. At this stage I'm going to pull out those plastic straws that we put in earlier, just so they don't get stuck into the ganache. So you can pop it in the fridge for 5 minutes just to harden your chocolate ganache, and then if you need to go over with another layer, just go over again. You don't want to have it too thick, it just wants to form a smooth surface all the way over your cake. And I'm just going to try and smooth that down a little bit more. So I've got some metal scrapers. You don't have to use a metal scraper now, I've just dipped them in hot water so that it kind of melts the surface just ever so slightly. So to cover our cake, I've rolled a thin strip of our pale pink fondant, and we're just going to place this just on the very top curve. I've lined it up with the front edge, and you just want to trim it at the back so that it's the same thickness as our cake itself. So I've rolled a pink rectangle of fondant now for both sides of my cake. Now if it's a little bit big you can trim it at the sides, but what I want you to do at the top is just put a little fold on that top bit on either side. And what we're going to do is create, for the front and back, we're going to create a template. I've used greaseproof paper and I'm going to cut it so it's about the width of my bag, and I've cut it so it's a little bit taller, and this is going to help us cut out our front panel in the pink fondant. So I've just texturized the front panel like I did earlier with the little bag tag. So I've cut around that template, and then we're just going to push it onto our cake. Now it might not match exact, we might need to still do a little bit of trimming. If it is too big, just trim anything extra off the edges, as fits about okay. I'm going to put a stitching line down either side, again using that stitching wheel. So just a little bit taller than I want, so I'm just going to cut a little bit off the top, and then we're going to put a long thin pink strip along that top edge, and we're going to add our stitching lines along either side of that strip. Once I've done that, I can stick on that little bow that I made earlier. Just make sure your bow has dried before sticking that onto the bag. And I'm just going to mark where I want those handles to go. And I'm going to put my little bag tag directly below one of the marks for the handle, but quite a bit further down. I've just used water, so do make sure it sticks properly. If water's not firm enough, you can use royal icing, or even you can use a little bit of your buttercream. And we'll just give it a bit more detail on the side. We'll just add some little lines with some stitching lines down the side of the bag. A little bit at the bottom, more stitching lines. And you're going to do exactly the same at the back of the bag with your panel as you did at the front. And then you don't have to add the bag tag and the bow to the back. And we're going to cover the board. So I've got white fondant, I've rolled it nice and thin. I've just put a little bit of water on the board so that when we place it on there it sticks. And you're just going to sort of ruffle it up as you place it onto that board so it looks like fabric. And we'll keep adding pieces, so overlapping them so you can't see where one ends and your next piece begins. Do that all the way around, and then trim that all the way around the edges. So next we're going to add some straws where we want our bag handles to go. Our handles are going to be made on wires, so we don't want to stick the wire directly into the cake. So we're going to add some straws so that the wire from the bag handle will insert into the middle of the straw rather than going directly into your cake. So I've got some quite thick wires here, so these are gauge 18 wires, and I have doubled them up. And what I'm going to do is we've bent them, and we're going to just seal them together at the top with some florist tape. And you want to make 2 of these, and then just push into the handbag, making sure it goes into those straws, just to check the size of them. So if they're too tall, take them out and trim a little bit off the bottom. So I'm quite happy with those like that, so I'm going to leave those in there. And I've cut a strip of my pale pink. I'm going to wrap that around my wire, a little bit of water in there. And can you see we're folding it and pinching it at the side. Make sure you can't see that wire. We're going to add a stitching line along that edge. So I've gone across the top, and we'll also put a line underneath as well. I think you can just about see that on there. And it's a little bit wide at the bottom, so we're just going to cut a little bit off the edge either side. And we are going to neaten these up in a minute when we add a little bit more to the handles. So we've got like a little sausage shape in pink that's going to be pushed at the bottom edge of each of those. And then a rectangle of pink. Start with this just under your little sausage shape and push it up so it goes around the base of the handbag handle, and just try and push it around as far as you can. And then these little ends of our sausage shapes that are just poking out just want to be painted in that rose gold colour that we were using earlier. So I've put the handles on the back of the bag first, and now I've moved on to the front ones. And before I add the handle to the front, I'm going to stick a little strap on this bag tag. Put a little bit of a stitching line in there. Put put another piece on there. Just make sure the end is rounded, and we'll put that little round dinting using the end of one of our straws, and we're going to paint that round bit in the rose gold again. Once you've done that, you can put the handles on in exactly the same way as we did on the back, and there's our handbag all finished. And you can use this method for a few different handbags, so you might want to change the size and shape of your bag. It doesn't have to look the same as this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram and more.